Here we go. How's that for a countdown? You like that, Jeremy?
Loving it. Loving it.
Doesn't that remind you of very highly patriotic stuff?
Oh, yeah, man. It reminds me of 1984, Ronald Reagan, like a parade with the president.
Yes, to me, it was always like a 1950s or 1940s, but same deal. Like the president parade, I picture more black and white, and they got
maybe an Animal House parade.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jeremy, thank you for being on the show and really creating our own show today. A little backdrop for everyone that's viewing. Now, we got quite a few people in the event that said they were tuning in, but being that we're Facebook Live, we'll get plenty of extra viewers that are going to pop in, and then we get lots of viewers that watch this stuff on the replay. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in. This is an exciting one. So Jeremy, for those of you who don't know, is quite the stud in the technology recruiting space, quite the trainer. He's a member of Pinnacle Society because his billings are through the roof. To get into that, you're just one of the top billers, and looking at billing 7 figures in that group is not something that's, oh my God, that can't happen. So he's done a lot of trainings. One of them in particular, he had recently done, and it's something he's done a couple of times. I know. Would you say, is this your main sort of go-to key one, or just one of many great ones that
it's one of many, but it's one that I kind of repolished it up this year to also be a good message for folks that are solo independent, and it's also a good message for rainmaker model folks or anyone that's kind of struggling, with the economy we're all in. And so I kind of rebranded it and repolished it up a little bit.
Well, it's really highly in demand because you've done it in a bunch of places. There's been great comments when we've seen it. You had mentioned it just briefly in one of the groups that you did it. We had like 15 people comment on, oh, what a bummer. Let me know when you do it again. So you were gracious enough to come on and bless this group with your content. So I know it's a bit of a long one, so I'm going to bow out of this. I'm going to take questions. Okay, so you can either go into your browser and put StreamYard.com/Facebook. It'll then, if you do that, it'll tell us who you are when you're commenting. We'll put some comments on the screen. If you don't do it, you could still comment just like you normally would in Facebook. All right, and we'll be good to go there. And I'm just going to be the director behind the scenes. So I'll spill out some questions when you get them, Jeremy. I'm going to sort of have some fun with the different angles of your face and what have you. So let's, without further ado, my friend, let's go ahead and let's turn it over to you.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks for having me today. What I'm trying to do with this message is show the evolution of a recruiter and the things that helped make me a successful rookie back in 2000 at MRI, and the things that helped me increase billings every year for 7 years in a row. I'm going to kind of take you guys on a journey where I had gone from being a solo rookie, full desk account executive, and billing like 350-ish in my rookie year. And I went on this journey where I increased my billings and kind of, got up to around 750, running a small team and a rainmaker model. And this was before I started my own firm. But I'm going to hit some things that are very relevant to how do people bill more with the same amount of time and energy. And in fact, as you evolve as a recruiter, how do people earn more with less time and energy? Like, how can some people bill 600 or 700 grand while others bill 200? What are those key differences, and how can you apply them to your desk to make a huge difference? So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. First off, kind of introduction. I was a college athlete. I was at the University of Missouri. Was a springboard and platform diver on the swimming and diving team there. Graduated in '98. This is right around Y2K era. And I wound up in St. Louis. And I did 2 years as an employment specialist for nonprofit. I was placing people with disabilities to help them find jobs. Okay. And specifically, I was helping people with disabilities find a job in software engineering. We were teaching people that were paraplegic, that had cerebral palsy. Some of them had depression, but you couldn't physically see anything wrong with them at all. Some were in wheelchairs and had adaptive equipment, adaptive technology. And my job was to help them interview, do interview prep, resume stuff, help them get a job, and then help them keep the job. I got paid bonuses on retention, but I was in nonprofit and I was making like 25 grand a year. This was 99, right around Y2K. And I said, you know, it's time to try to get more into the private sector, see if I can get into a career path where I can earn more for myself and my family. And I answered an ad. I answered an ad for MRI in St. Louis, and I took a pay cut. Went from like 28 grand a year to a $12,000 base salary. So if any of you guys have ever had either straight commission or super low, I took a base of 12,000, but I was getting commissions of 35 to 40%. And my job was to develop an IT recruiting desk in St. Louis and go develop business, get fee agreements, get clients. And I had to do the recruiting, the account management, the interview prep, the debriefs, the closings, literally everything except for send the invoice out. But I was working for an MRI office, okay? And long story short, my first year was a rookie of the year in MRI in the Midwest region. I was a rookie the same year that Jordan Rayboy was, if any of you guys know him. And MRI was a great place to learn the basics. I'm going to hit those basics right now if there's any rookies on the call. But, you know, veterans, hopefully you know a lot about these basics. But one thing I always say about knowing something, knowing the basics, and then actually doing it are two different things, okay? Back in those days, we had to do 100 calls a day, 4 hours connect time. You know, they were really looking at people making a placement in their first 90 days. If you didn't, you were fired. They really measured number of fee agreements per week, per month, number of new clients. They were looking at number of search assignments per person. And they would look at how many candidates you presented per day, per week. They would look at how many interviews you had going, right? And then ultimately making deals, making placements. How to structure a day at MRI. And I think it's true today. They taught us to run both sides of the desk, and we would structure our day such that, you know, 8 to 9 was time to check your email, drink your coffee, you know, things that you needed to do that were busy work, but block your time. And it's one of the things I talk about today is folks want to know, okay, how do you run a 360 desk? How do you manage your time? What does your day need to look like? And for me, I block time from 9 to 11 is living on the phone. 9 to 11 is about business development. It's about going after clients that I would like to work with. Sometimes I'm researching companies that I know have an opening that's the type that I want to work. Could be a director role, a VP role, a CIO role, chief security officer, director of SAP, but it's some level of role that I want to work on. And I'll have 10 to 20 companies that I'm going after that I would like to introduce myself to. This is cold clients, companies that don't know us. We're also building into that business development time frame in the morning. Business development in the morning, 9 to 11, living on the phone, lots of calls. And I try to block my time and not really even come up for air. Don't go to the bathroom. Don't go for smoke breaks. I don't smoke, but some people do. But 9 to 11, when it's just, I block everything out and number of calls, live on the phone. But when you block time, you have to specifically block other time to do other stuff. And so 11 to 12, 11 to 12:30, I'm going to stop doing all those calls and say, did I need to email someone a fee agreement? Did I need to follow up on something? Did I need to do an interview prep, a debrief, see how an interview went? You know, check my emails. Those of you that need to check your fantasy football team, you know, do that at 12 o'clock, 12:15. Put a little section of your day where you can do that other stuff that you need to do. Come back from lunch refreshed. Hopefully you got out, stretch the legs, get the blood moving. You come back from lunch, 1 to 3:30, 1 to 4, depends on who you are and what your desk is looking like. But again, I'm going to live on the phone from 1 to 4. That's 3 hours there plus the 2 hours before lunch from 9 to 11. That's 5 hours that is living on the phone. Number of calls, knocking them out. Scheduled calls, when you do like email blast, let's say that you're working on a search and someone says, yes, I want to talk to you about that role. And it's a scheduled call that you both have a 30-minute block of time. Put those in the afternoon or whenever you can. But I try to put those between 1 and 4 as well. And, again, I don't have 100 calls like I used to back in 01 or 02, but my connect time very often is over 3.5 to 4 to 4.5 hours a day. And quality of calls, when you're working on high quality searches and you're getting lots of people interested that want to talk to you, you might have fewer calls, but the length of the call and the connect time is going to be there. And then the metrics that are going to matter for tenured recruiters is going to be number of people presented on opportunities, number of interviews that you have going right now, and then not only phone interviews, but number of in-person final interviews. So how to structure a day, and again, from 4 to 5, 4 to 5:30, that's when I'm going to stop all those calls and prepare for the next day. That's where you're going to put your research. What search am I going to work on tomorrow? If you need to do an email blast campaign, you could have done it from 8 to 9. You can also do an email blast campaign 4 to 5, 4 to 5:30. You can do your social media stuff. Do I need to put something on LinkedIn? Or write some blog and post it. Create times of the day that you can do those things. But again, I think your big billers, they're blocking their time 9 to 11 and 1 to 4. And dialing for dollars was a term we used to use in the early 2000s. And in your head, you have to think about living on the phone, making calls, hang up, dial again, hang up, dial again, hang up, dial again, hang up. Whether you're calling a recruit list that you put together, we use PC Recruiter. Some people I know are using Crelate or, Bullhorn or whatever they're using, but you're making those calls and you're really working your list, and you hopefully created that list the day before. You're not doing it in the moment. You have that list. It's just a matter of executing on it. That's where most people fail, is in the execution. They fail to say, you know what, I'm going to block my time and I am going to sit there and I am going to work my list. And I think that's where your big billers have a lot of them are going to have the wherewithal to block things out, tunnel focus, and kill it during that 2-hour block or that 90-minute block or that 2-hour block. So celebrating the small victories. MRI, every time we got a fee agreement or a new client, we would put a little chip on the board. This is back in the day. I don't know if people use those visual boards where you put the chips up anymore. But the concept of celebrating small victories, it's like a baseball player or a baseball team that realizes you don't have to hit the home run every time, okay? The way to win games is to put people on base. It's okay to get singles, doubles, and triples, not just home runs, and then ultimately you're going to score runs. Well, in our game of recruitment, getting fee agreements, getting new searches, presenting people, getting interviews. When you get that interview, even though that's not a placement, that's like getting a double or a single. When you get the in-person final interview, they've already had one interview, it went great, the feedback was good on both sides, now they're going for the final. That's like getting someone on third, and it's all about getting people on base and advancing base runners. And you have to celebrate those small successes. Say, hey, I got a hit, I got a single, I got a double, I got someone an interview. And you celebrate those small successes on a daily and weekly basis, and then it adds up to where obviously you're going to make deals. At MRI, they taught us to do top-down marketing, and to this day, so when I go after clients, I start with the CIO. I then go to the VP of IT, the CTO, the CISO, the directors and VPs of enterprise apps. And I'm going to go top down in the organization, and I'm going to make calls to them. It's a voicemail world. Most of them are voicemails. I admit that. But I'm going to show you guys how I've evolved in my marketing from the early years to now. And I'm going to jump into that right now, and then we'll kind of come back over to the PowerPoint presentation. All right. So first of all, MPC marketing absolutely still works. I'm going to show you guys a couple of examples and get very real with you guys. I'm showing some old MPC presentations,
You
and I'm going to
you
show you
still
how I
have
was
to
doing
share it on the
the.
screen. You have to share it on the screen. We're not seeing the screen.
Oh, I got to share this
Yeah,
one on the
redo it
screen
again.
too.
Redo it again because we switched things.
Okay, hold up. Share screen. Okay, share. Okay, Neil, are you seeing my screen?
Yep, you're there.
Okay, good deal. So this was an example of an MPC marketing that I did. This was several years ago to KC Southern Railroad. Okay, and it says, "Good morning, Mike." You know, Mike Nats was the CIO at KC Southern Railroad, and I go for the absolute highest person in huge companies. I do it all the time, and I CC lots of director level and VP level people within the IT department, top down. I also usually include a chief HR officer, a VP of HR, a director of talent acquisition. Okay. And I do this all on purpose, right? My goal with business development is to get a reaction. I really coach people in business development. It's not okay to just do business development and constantly get ignored, where they don't reply to you, they don't answer your voicemail, they don't email you back. It's just it went into oblivion and you don't get any response at all. I can't take that. I can't tolerate that. And when I coach, I say you have to generate a response. Doesn't mean they're going to all like you, doesn't mean they're going to all work with you, but they're going to remember you, they're going to know who you are, they're going to know what you specialize in, and you're going to get a response if you try this technique. So you go at the highest levels and then you include, so you're not going around people, you're including them, but you put them right there on that email. Now, for this to work properly, you need to call them first. It's going to be a voicemail, so stop worrying about it. Call them and leave a good voicemail. Keep it under 60 seconds. They're probably not even going to hear it anyway. But here's what's going to happen. In my subject line of the email, I put regarding the voicemail that I just left for you. Right? Great emails have a very good subject line. Great emails in LinkedIn have a high open rate, has a good subject line that creates curiosity. It's at least enough to make them open it. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to do anything, but they're at least going to open it, right? Regarding the voicemail that I just left for you, you only have to leave the voicemail for the CIO in my situation, or it could be if you're in finance and accounting, you'll leave for the CFO or the VP of finance and accounting, whatever. And then when the other people open it also, you didn't even have to leave them a voicemail because they see that they were just CC'd on it. Okay. Now I do believe in leaving all of them voicemails. So I leave 5, 6, 7 people in the organization a voicemail. Then I do the email and it says, "Hey, Mike, I left a voicemail for you this morning, but I also wanted to follow up via email." You know, and then this is an MPC presentation really is what it is. It tells them who I am and what I do. The takeaway here isn't the magical words that I write below per se. It is that you have to leave voicemails for the highest level of people in companies. You go top down, then you go across. And when you do that follow-up email, have a good subject line, right? And then you're going to get it opened. And the magic, I think, of this is really human psychology. When directors and VPs see that a C-level person was emailed and contacted, they get really territorial. They want to respond. They want to look like they're doing their job. Okay. And directors of talent acquisition and VPs of HR very quickly, they want to get involved so you don't contact those VPs and C levels. You got to run it through us, right? That's what they're going to all do, right? Well, that's good. Now you're getting a response, right? And we want to elicit responses. I'll show you the response that this one elicited real quick. Here you go. "Hi, Jeremy. I was forwarded the email that you sent to one of our managers, and I thought you and I should talk regarding IT talent. I am available Friday afternoon. Is there a time that works for you?" And this is someone that wasn't even on my email. This is the talent acquisition manager, Karen Hoffman. She was not even on my email. Mike, Sandeep, Barbara, and Raj, they were on the email, right? And so great emails get opened. Good subject lines get opened. People that have the confidence to make calls in 2020, do it. Make the calls. You have to do that first. And then these emails get forwarded a lot of times. And what's the power dynamic when a C level or VP level or senior director forwards that to a manager of talent acquisition? Well, now they're going to respond. They're going to get back with you, right? Because when a director or VP in the organization says they forward it over and say, "Hey, can you follow up on this?" They're going to do it. They're going to follow up. The power dynamic is totally different now when they reach back out to me than it would have been if I started with the manager of talent acquisition. That's a bad place to start. So too many recruiters, and if you want to be like everyone else, then go the path of least resistance and just call internal recruiters, call internal recruiting managers. You're starting at the lowest point, and they're getting hit so hard, most of them are going to just ignore you. Okay. So this technique is about getting responses. Okay. So I'm going to show you two more things real quick, and we're going to jump back to the PowerPoint. This one is 2017. I'm going to go from the bottom up. This just shows you that MPC marketing works, or HPC, depending on what you call it. A most placeable candidate is what MRI always called it. And so this is to the CIO of Bridgestone Firestone. Everyone knows them, big company. They do the tires. Hi, Tim. Our SAP team is representing this strong SAP leader, blah, 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 U.S. citizen. Here's some little profile about the person, right, who I'm representing, you know, their budget, their team size, whatever. You know, my point here is I'm calling and emailing the highest level people in huge companies, and this stuff works. It works. Hi, Jeremy. I would be interested to talk with him. Can you let me know next steps in addition to sharing a resume and salary requirements? You know, so you go on down, and, you know, long story short, we end up getting an interview. We end up getting the search. We end up getting a new fee agreement with Bridgestone Firestone, because the fact that I'm just doing MPC marketing. Okay. I'm going to show y'all one last one and we'll move on. This is Little Caesars Pizza. They are owned by Illich Holdings in Detroit, Michigan, and they own the Detroit Red Wings as well. So I'm emailing the CIO. Carlin Bonnert was the CIO at the time. Nothing I'm sharing is that sensitive. A lot of these are 4 to 5 years old. But I just want you guys to know it works, right? This is real. Hello, Carlin. I hope all is well with you. I'm representing a senior IT director, used to live in Detroit. She's interested in moving back for the right opportunity. You know, and I talk about some stuff here. I said one of her references is the former CIO at Kmart, who is now the CIO at Pacific Gas and Electric, Karen Austin. Now, the reason I did that, and I want you guys, when possible, when you're marketing really high-level people, you know, I put a little time into this. Karen Austin is one of the most well-known female CIOs in the country. So is Carlin Bonnert, who I'm emailing to. They actually know each other. Well, they're connected on LinkedIn together. They know each other. So I'm putting in here that one of the references of this candidate is someone that Carlin Bonnert knows, right? And you can look on LinkedIn a lot of times and see shared connections, in common connections and things like that. So when you know a little tidbit like that, that's valuable, right? You put that in there, right? And so I sent that. At this point, I knew Carlin, but I'd never worked with this company. But I did know Carlin from other stuff in the past. She says, Jeremy, right now I do not have the need for a senior director, blah, blah, blah. I'm the CIO for Illich Holdings, includes Detroit Tigers, Detroit Red Wings, Little Caesars. I do have a VP opening for an IT person who's worked in arenas and sporting venues. You know, so here we are getting an alternate search, right? That's what MRI always taught us is you're trying to get an interview for the person you're representing. If not, you're trying to get an alternate search, right? So here's an alternate search with a new client we weren't working with. And what's the person's salary requirements? You know, come full circle, we got the search. We got a new client, got a new fee agreement, and we even got an interview for the person that we were representing in that situation. Okay. So I'm going to jump back to the PowerPoint. couple of takeaways from my early years. I'm going to talk about the evolution of a recruiter because I'm going to go into my early years and then how did I evolve year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. Number one, the basics in year 1 were driven into us to never stop doing business development. Never, never, never. Always do both activities at all times. And too many tenured recruiters get into a place where they say, well, I got a lot of searches, things are good, got a lot of fee agreements. And big common mistakes are to just focus only on recruiting and stop doing business development. Big mistake. All the wells dry up. And when you have a lot of searches with one client, let's say you got 10, 12, 15 with one client, and you really don't have that many other clients, all it takes is one new person to come in and say, we're not paying recruiting fees anymore. We're done. And then, the person that finds themselves in that scenario, they're dead in the water. They're dead in the water. Now they're rusty on business development. They haven't done it for however long. They have no momentum, no market momentum. And so I do think that smart people look at their desk and sometimes they do 50-50 on business development and recruitment. Sometimes they do 70-30 or 80-20, but they are not stopping business development, right? They never stop. Those are your big billers. They just don't stop. And I think it's very important to realize that if you're working on bad searches, a big biller is more apt to do pure 100% business development. And they've realized that it's better to do business development or take a great MPC to market than it is to work on a really bad search assignment. And so I encourage all of you to take inventory of the searches you have and to really think twice about where you spend your time and energy. One of the biggest differences between a person billing 500 and 200 or $1 million and 400, what's the difference? It's not that people are superheroes, generally speaking. It's not that they're working 80 hours a week. It's usually that they work smarter. It's usually that they have a higher fill rate. They protect their time vigorously. They work on better searches. They're really good at vetting the search assignment itself in the intake call with a hiring authority. And they're deciding, is this worth my time and energy or not? And then if they have 10 or 15 or 20 searches, they're very good at deciding of those 20, which 2 or 3 are the best that give me the highest fill rate potential. Okay. And so that's to me the biggest difference between big billers and average or kind of in the middle recruiters. I'm not talking about people that fail in our business, but people that are, cranking out 150 to 225 grand a year. How could they do 400? How could they do 500? And the big thing is becoming very judicious with your time, protecting your time, getting better clients, getting better searches. We should top grade our clients and top grade our search assignments the same way companies top grade their talent. Okay. And the person that stops doing business development, they're not top grading. All right. Last thing on this, in the early years, MRI taught us to do was squeeze the orange on every live call. And, when I train and coach today, I ask recruiters, I'll say, how many live conversations a day do you think you have? And most people think that they have more live calls than they really do. So, I lived on the phone. I had a great phone day, and you look at it, maybe you had a great phone day of making outbound voicemails. Maybe that's true. How many live real conversations did you get into with a hiring authority or a client, real call, or a candidate, real call about an actual opportunity you have? And for most recruiters, it's like 10 to 12, maybe 15 a day. That's it. 8, 10, 12. How many live calls a day do you get? And those could be those scheduled block calls where they're 30 minutes or 45 minutes and it's a real candidate that really is qualified for your role, and then you got a scheduled call. Those count. But you have to maximize those live calls. They're very valuable. You'll only get a few of those a day. That's when it's go time. It's showtime. And great recruiters are squeezing the orange. They're finding out, is that candidate a fit for my current search? They're finding out what's their dream opportunity, what makes that person tick. If my role is not right for them, then what would be that I can call them back on in the future? They're building rapport with that person that they might use down the road, if not now. They're asking about other hiring authorities at the company they're at now. What other hiring is going on? So they're not just doing the candidate side. They're going ahead and also taking that opportunity to cover both sides of the coin before they hang up. When they do a reference check call, right, with a VP or a director, before they hang up, they're going to go, oh yeah, before I let you go, I wanted to ask you one more thing. And they're going to go ahead and find out what's going on at hiring in that company. The point is, you don't hang up the phone before you try to achieve all of these key things that you're trying to achieve. And I call that squeezing the orange until you can't get any more orange juice out of that call. But when people hang up from a great candidate conversation and they didn't talk about what else are you hearing in the market, what are other recruiters calling you about? What other companies are ramping up right now? What are you hearing? Tell me. Get more information. Big billers are better at that than average recruiters. And even average recruiters are better at that than people that literally fail in our business. Because when you have a live conversation, you've got to get everything you can out of it. In the early years at MRI, year 1, year 2, we're learning to use scripts. We're learning that if you have a good script, and mine's not word for word, I do bullet point scripts. But when I have a script, I have better voicemails. They sound better. They sound more professional. They're more enticing, and they're short and sweet, and people can hear my name and phone number. I don't forget to include something, but I keep them under 60 seconds, hopefully closer to 45. And then I follow it up with the email and the voicemail and the email, okay, with good subject lines. Doing the top-down business development. And then I'm celebrating those small successes on the daily, weekly, and monthly key metrics, right? Checking job orders, candidates presented, number of interviews. And I want to show you guys how I've evolved over time really fast here before I jump to the next slide. I don't know if anyone on the call has ever gotten a situation where you said, I've gone to this training, I went to this conference, and I come back and I have this new energy around these metrics I'm going to now track. And then like a week later, you're totally not doing it, right? You're not tracking metrics at all. So we were no different than you guys. And I said, man, I've got to create something different that predicts our success or our failure. And it lets me know when our check engine light is on as a company. And it needs to let each account executive know if their check engine light is on in terms of, can I predict that they're going to make at least one placement in the next 30 days or not? And this is the concept that we came up with. It's called 5 Alive, 10 in Process. You guys hopefully can see that this is just an Excel spreadsheet. On the left-hand side of this document, it has the name of the account executive. And, I run a small team. So the ones that say Jeremy's me, this is an old, there's no sensitive information on here anymore, but it'll say Jeremy, it'll say Roger, Polly, Adam. That's my team, right? On the far left, you can see the candidate's name, which position they're presented for, which company, 3M, Agnovus Healthcare. And you can see the date that they were presented or submitted, whatever. And then there's a little place for activities and notes. This runs our team meetings, right? It runs our team meetings. 5 Alive is a minimum expectation for every single producer. If you're a pure recruiter or an account executive, full desk, but if you're a revenue producer, 5 Alive means that you minimum 5 people are interviewing right now. The minute that they interview with a client and the client says, yeah, they're not for us, we're not moving forward with them, they're dead. They're not alive anymore. You have to maintain a minimum of 5 people interviewing at all times. That's our minimum goal in our company per person. That's a per person thing. And you need an additional 5 that are recently presented. Well, I presented them 2 days ago, but I don't know if I'm going to get an interview yet. That means they're in process. All of your people that are interviewing and alive, they're in process. All your people that are presented but not interviewing are also in process. We need 10 minimum. The minute the client says I'm not interviewing them, they are dead. They are not in process anymore. This document allows us to see which recruiters in our office have at least 5 interviews or more. And if you can maintain 5 Alive at all times, it really means that you had 15 to 20 interviews per month. Okay. And to do that, you have to present around 1 candidate per day. You have to present around 4 to 5 candidates per week, which is around 20 to 25 people per month to maintain this. This is a minimum, like we got to maintain 5 alive, 10 in process. And when someone is at 3, it don't mean they get fired. They got 3 interviews and they got 7 people in process. What it means is their check engine light is on, right? They need to get their number back up above 5 and alive and 10 in process to be in a healthy range so that the check engine light goes back off and we can now predict their success. When people routinely only have 1 or 2 or 3 people interviewing and routinely only have 5 or 6 or 7 people in process, it predicts that they very likely might not make a placement in the next 30 days. These are the people that they do just enough to not get fired, but I really can't say with confidence that I think they're going to make a deal. This and this runs our morning meetings. What's in green is an offer acceptance. We leave them on the sheet in green until they start. Reminds us to send the invoice out. It lets us celebrate the successes that we have, but not for too long. You can't rest on your laurels in this business. You can celebrate your success for a week or two, then they're gone, they're off now. We put them in black and we bold them when they're interviewing. So in-person interviews, telephone interviews, TI is a telephone interview, INP is an in-person. We put them in bold when they're interviewing, and then we use color coding, like yellow or red is when they're on hold, red is when they've been ruled out. We just leave it on here till the next meeting, and then it allows us, the account executive, to remember who they need to let off the hook. I need to call them and let them off the hook, let them know why or whatever, and then now they come off. They're no longer on here. You slide it off. So that's what we use. 5 alive, 10 in process, and it really does predict your success and your failures. So I'm going to really pick up speed and move along here, especially we got a late start. I earned a Pacesetter trip at MRI. I got to go to Hawaii. I'm still pretty young. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I billed, 320, whatever it was. And I met on this trip Nathan Hanks, Jeff Kay, John Bartos, Jordan Rayboy. This was the year I met them all. It was probably 01. Right? Became very good friends of mine. Nathan Hanks was one of the top 10 account executives in the world for MRI in the early 2000s. He was running an SAP practice, and he ran a team of 4, and they were billing 1.5 to 2 million a year. He didn't own the firm. He didn't own the company. He was an account executive just like I was, young guy, high energy. And I mean, this dude was like 27 years old running a $2 million team. And I saw him on the monthly ranking sheets at MRI, and man, I knew exactly who Nathan Hanks was. So I meet him, and he gave me the words of wisdom. He said, man, you got to specialize in a niche. You got to dominate your market. And I start learning in year 1 and year 2, Jeff Kay's philosophies of specializing in a niche. Now, more people today know about these things, but in 01 and 02, a ton of people were doing general desk, general IT recruiting desk, general finance and accounting. They would run a city desk, but you weren't seeing a lot of people run a national, highly specialized niche desk. And so that was step 1. I mean, just that one thing. I went back and I started specializing in ERP instead of general IT. And I was doing SAP, PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, and Oracle. And I mean, I immediately went into the 400s, still solo. I was doing the theory of threes and quarterly contact, recyclability of candidates. Theory of threes meant for every really, really strong MPC, I wanted to get them into 3 interviews. For every really, really good search that I had, I want to have at least 3 key people presented to it. Minimum. I really want to present at least 5. But the mathematics behind our business, the statistics that say, if I present 2 people versus 4, I've doubled my chance to make that deal, make that placement. I'm giving clients more options. I'm presenting more candidates. And now I'm pushing for feedback. I'm getting interviews. I'm getting my number of interviews up, and I'm filling a higher percentage of the searches I'm working on. So theory of threes, in those days, we didn't have automated marketing campaigns. We didn't have LinkedIn yet. We didn't have like email blast campaigns yet. Back in those days, we said, you want to contact every single client in your marketplace, however you define that, at least quarterly. And we were using the fill method to define your market. That's a Jeff Kay thing. I think next level exchange, but function, industry, level, location. And every market can be defined by that. What's my function? What do I recruit in? I mean, I recruit IT. Industry, do you specialize in automotive or aerospace and defense or banking, whatever it is? And then level of roles, what level? Some people can, you can shrink or expand these things to make a market that you feel like is manageable for you. Or if you're doing a team concept, you can have a little bit of a bigger market. And then location, do you do a city, a state? Do you do a region? Do you do multiple states? Do you do the whole country? Do you do global? Do you do Canada and Mexico and US? So now, how have we evolved though? Quarterly contact's not enough now. It wasn't 01, 02. It was something to strive for. In 2020, between content creation, so doing blogs, right? Doing a video blog, writing articles, posting on LinkedIn, maybe sending a client a newsletter, doing an MPC presentation, doing a direct call, all these different ways to do a touch point. We want to have touch points with everyone in our market now, like weekly. Back then it was quarterly. Technology has advanced certain things around what we feel like is, what are big billers doing? Because back 20 years ago, I don't think we were talking about this, but today I am. I think each account executive, when they're doing it right, if they're going to be a big biller, whether you work for someone else or yourself, you're brand building, and by the time I was getting into year 4 and year 5, there was a brand behind the MRI office that I worked for. We were becoming well known in the SAP space, just like Nathan Hanks was. But Nathan Hanks had a brand, John Bartos had a brand, Jordan Rayboy had a brand, and Jeremy Seidman. I started to develop my personal brand, right? And you want to become the known go-to person for whatever it is you do. A lot of the folks in this call might know David Patterson's a buddy of mine. He and I both recruit SAP. We both knew Nathan Hanks. We both came out of the MRI network back in the day. And brand building is you become like the SAP recruiter, the finance and accounting recruiter. You become the insurance recruiter, the whatever. And you don't have to be that in the whole country. But can you be that in your city? Can you be that in a certain state? Can you be that in the Midwest or the South or the East Coast? And the answer is that's what you need to try to become. That's how people get inbound calls and clients start calling you, because now you have a brand, right? And people look you up, they find you, companies find you, word of mouth. That's branding. So year 3, I'm taking off on niche specialization. I'm learning the top ways to increase revenue. And in my year 3, I built 480 grand, still solo. This was my highest solo at that point in my career. And I had more business than I could handle. I was getting really good at rainmaking and building clients, getting fee agreements. I was getting better at fee agreement negotiation. I was getting better at getting exclusives. I wasn't doing a lot of retain back on year 3. I wasn't. We evolved into that. But I learned that you want to work harder and smarter. You want to increase efficiency. You want to start to get higher fee, less 20% fee agreements and more 25. Can I even get 30 or 27%? Work more exclusives instead of more vendor kind of HR driven multi-firm situations. And so you start working smarter, not just harder. And you have higher fill rates and you get bigger fees. You're increasing your average fee. And you start to get so many clients that you can be pickier, turning down bad business. This is all happening in year 3. For me, this was my evolution. Part of the point of today's call is you can learn from other people, even if you're in year 1, and say, how can I learn all of those golden nuggets, the pearls, the wisdom, and how can I apply it to my desk right now? Like, why wait 10 years to getting your teeth kicked in to learn some of these concepts, right? After you get more fee agreements than you can handle, if you're still solo, you're leaving money on the table because you can't fill them all, right? And so I went and talked at the end of year 3 with the guy that owned my MRI office, and I said, I feel like I need to start building a team. And I knew other people at MRI were building teams of 2 to 3 support staff that did mostly 100% recruiting to support these rainmakers that were building these $1 to $2 million team concepts, right? And I was ready to do that. I saw what was happening with other people, and I didn't sit back and wait for that to happen. I said, I have to apply that to my desk this year because that's what's going to take me to the next level. Even though I was working for someone else, I thought of my desk as if I was the plant controller of a plant within a business. And I was the CEO of my desk, even though I didn't own my firm at this point in my career. And I ended up splitting the base salary on hiring new people. I would pay half of it, and the firm owner paid half of it. And I started building a team. I became much more selective, better negotiator, understood the quality of the search is huge. I learned how to grade search assignments based on at least 10 different variables. It wasn't all about the fee amount. It was, I looked at, is it a desk builder search? So even if it was kind of a bad search, but it was a vice president level search or a director, that's a desk builder. It means it's going to get you into more live conversations with really high level people in your industry. That was one of my variables was, is it a desk builder search? I looked at ease to fill. So let's say you had a great fee agreement with a company, but the location was Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And it was just a really tough location. That's going to be a knock on that search. You know, what's the ease to fill? How good is the brand of the company? Is it exclusive or multiple firm? What's the partnership? What's the fee agreement? What's the relationship? Am I dealing directly with hiring authority? Are we the only firm on it or not? How good's their comp range? Is it realistic? Is it a highly realistic search or not? And I would rather work on a search that was 25 grand, but had a lot of variables in its favor rather than a 35 grand fee that had a multiple firms, mostly HR driven, weren't really letting me work with a hiring authority. Brand of the company was very mediocre, tough location. Who cares if it's 10K more? I mean, I can knock out 3 25K searches. That's 75 grand. Rather than spend my time working on one 45K search, that's a really bad job order. So people that are good at grading their searches to figure out what to work on and why, that was huge. I was learning that in year 4. Learning to say no to bad business. I really evolved in year 4 from specializing in perm placement and being a transactional sales type of account executive. And I started to learn that I need to sound on the phone more like we're in professional services. Law firms, Deloitte, IBM, Accenture, Big 5, Korn Ferry, Heidrick and Struggle, Spencer Stewart. These are professional service level account executives that are building business, and they aren't trying to just plug a hole. They're not just zapping resumes, filling roles. And the level of conversation has to change. The types of questions we ask, and you evolve from placing people to working with businesses to solve problems, right? That's what we did. And started reading a book called Spin Selling back in those days and learned how to have more consultative language, asking better questions around what the business would achieve, what the department, IT department was trying to achieve. And, you know, it usually boils down to human capital and making a placement. But when you ask those better questions, it helps you to sell the opportunity better. It helps you to sound better. And I started sounding like a firm that could win retained business. I started sounding like a firm that you would use exclusively. Clients started to have more confidence to have a better level of partnership with me. And that's because of how I sounded. I could have done that in year 1. I just didn't know better, right? When we start with talent acquisition first, when we use language that sounds like we're okay with being a contingency vendor recruiting partner, recruiting vendor, really. You're not even a partner. You're just in their vendor MSA, you know, vendor program, and you're desperate for their business. You sign their contract. You, they don't negotiate hardly on anything, take it or leave it. These are things that happen in year 1 for a lot of people, year 2 for a lot of people, for people that are desperate. And so companies, when they know you're desperate, they sense it, they feel it, they put you in a certain bucket, right? So now you're in the multiple firm vendor bucket, 20% bucket probably. But you know, those same companies that we're talking about that do that, they still use Korn Ferry. They still use Spencer Stewart, Heidrick and Struggles. They still use niche and highly specialized firms on retainer, but they're not putting you in that category. Why? It's how we sound. It's what our website looks like. It's what our marketing materials look like. In year 4 and year 5, I'm learning to be more consultative, ask better questions. I'm learning to solve clients' problems through not just perm placement, but contract staffing. If you have someone go out on maternity leave, for example, if it's a really tough location, could you start someone on contract and do contract to hire? Executive consulting. I did my first CIO on contract, like a contract CIO for Carhartt, because they were in a tough location and they thought it was going to take 6 months or longer to fill the role permanently. So they were okay with a quick fill and bringing on a CIO on a contract basis. I started doing getting bundled retained projects, right? And where clients would give me 4 or 6 or 8 positions, and I would custom bid the whole thing and get like a 20 to 25K project retainer, and they would get a little bit of a savings discount, and I'll give them some volume discounting. But then I'm also getting 30K, and I'm getting the whole project on exclusive. Year 4, we did 550, and I had 2 people on my team helping me do it. Year 6 was my last year at MRI. We billed 720, and it was me and 2 people. Okay. We were really at that point becoming extremely well known as one of the top SAP recruiting firms in the country. And Nathan Hanks had already left MRI at this point. In 2006, I moved back home to Texas and started my own firm. And, I built a very boutique niche firm called ASAP Talent Services. And today, fast forward now, I mean, one of the lessons I learned late in this career was to build your marketing materials and branding, not only around what you've already done, but what you want to do in the future. And so on our website marketing materials, for example, it has board of director search. You might put things like diversity search. You might put C-suite executive retained search. People ask, how do I evolve from, the contingency recruiter to how can I compete with Korn Ferry and win? How can I win the bigger searches? How can I start to do 80K and 100K placement fees instead of only 20 and 25 and 30? And all of those things, right? So that was my evolution as I was getting into year 6 and year 7 and then starting my own firm. And so fast forward to today, over time, the people that you place in manager and director searches, they become VPs. People that you place in director and VP searches become C-level. So fostering relationships over time. You don't have to get trained at Korn Ferry to do those kind of searches. The other method is that you can work your way up in this business. And people, if you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not growing, you're dying. Ongoing training is huge, and your desk should evolve. You should make more money with less effort. This business should not feel as hard in year 10 as it did in year 1. And it shouldn't feel the same in year 20 as it did in year 10. People have to grow, and that growth can be a lot of things. It can be owning your own firm. It can be growing teams, but it doesn't have to be, because that's not for everyone. It can also be working higher level searches. It can be evolving from contingency to retained. It can be evolving from just perm placements to doing contract staffing. Doing your first board level search ever. It's awesome. Do it. And to have those aspirations to grow your business and evolve, because when you do something for the first time, get new accounts, get new clients, it creates adrenaline, really positive adrenaline. It gets you out of ruts, right? If you do your first board search ever, your first diversity search that you sold on retained, if you do your first contract placement ever, these are all ways that people can evolve that it doesn't always mean you have to start your own firm. It doesn't always mean you got to grow teams. Some people have to look at what are they strong at and set themselves up for success. What could evolution look like for you, right? For us, we started hiring virtual teams. I've got really tenured recruiters in Texas, Los Angeles, Phoenix. We're doing consulting. We're doing short-term labor. We're doing executive search. We're doing contract staffing, selling retention services to clients, board level search. And we've gotten paid in some really cool ways. I've been an expert witness in court and got paid for it. We've done organizational design with companies that are building out new SAP teams. We help them understand how to structure their department, even do job descriptions and help give them pre-written job descriptions and help them understand how to structure. A couple of things to wrap up, and then we're going to go into Q&A with Neil. So be thinking about questions you have. Guys, when you're in a rut, if you feel like you're leaving something on the table or you're having a bad year or a bad quarter, you got to get into peak state. Okay. You have to be raring to go in the morning. Okay. You have to, when you're in a negative place, it's going to take, you have to will yourself to get back into a better place, right? You have to replace old habits with new habits. You have to focus on where you're going, not where you're at today. Focus on where you're going, your goals. Get away from focusing on dwelling on the mud pit you're sitting in. You know, don't dwell on your excuses. Don't dwell on your failures. Don't dwell on your fall offs. The faster you can bounce back, get your head right. That's one of the other top things that predicts your success is just if your head is right or not. My good friend Jordan Rayboy, that some of you know, has a story like when he was a rookie. I think he billed like 400. He almost got fired in year 2, and he went like 120 days without making a placement. And his head was not in the right place. He'll admit that he was a bum. He was living on a guy's couch. And he wasn't married. He had no kids. He was in his 20s. He was partying. He had just blanked like 4 months in a row. And he went to a Tony Robbins event. And he came back and his head was right, right? It wasn't even about recruiting. It was about having your head right. And he billed 890 grand that next year, $890,000. And just him and one project coordinator only. And they build that kind of money. So having your head right is absolutely huge. Finding your proper motivation and turning your should into a must. Speaking of Tony Robbins, he said people are shoulding all over themselves. And I love that. I write that down. I love that quote. People are shoulding all over themselves. You have to figure out in your life, in your desk, in your business, what you must do, what we must do this today, what we must do this week, what we must do this month, what we must do this quarter. And you got to find your motivation. And whatever it is for different people, you've got to tap into it. We got to get out of our funk. And I'm going to leave you guys with a 45-day challenge. Anybody that would like to take it up, if you try to pull this off and you aren't in a whole different place, then I will literally take you to steak dinner. I'll buy drinks at the next conference we're all at. There's no way you could pull this 45-day challenge off and have your desk in a whole new place. Make 5 calls before 8:15 a.m. Right before you get ready to go to lunch, make 3 more calls. Now, if you get a live call and it ends up being a 30-minute conversation, hang up and go to lunch. But it's probably going to be voicemails. Make 3 more, then go to lunch. You know how many of those extra 3 calls it's gonna take you 2 minutes, 45-second voicemail each. You're done. Go to lunch. Make 5 extra calls before you leave the office. Stop watching your clock and checking out at 4:59. For God's sake, this business is not a job. What we're in, you can print money. If you do it right, you can print money. You know, your next call is the one you're about to make a 30K fee on. Your next call could be the one where you get a new search. That's a 30 or 40K search fee. You know, this is an activity business. Your activity predicts your success. Your activity predicts your revenue. So when someone forces themselves to make 13 extra calls a day, you know how many that is per month? It is crazy. This just gave someone, instead of 1 placement, it gave them 2. Instead of blanking, now they got a deal they closed. They got new searches, new fee agreements, new clients out of it. Focus on 2 new target clients per week. Start grading your searches so that you really are working on the best search you can. Use if I to close. I'm going to talk in detail about these last 3, and we're going to go to Q&A. But use if I, will you closes. What that means is when someone says, I cannot do a 25% fee agreement, you know, we only can do 20%. Then you got to say, I don't know if I can do 20%. We almost always work at 25. If I could convince my boss to go to 20%, would you be willing to give it to us on exclusive as a retained search with a 5K engagement fee. If I could get my boss to a 20%, would you do this, this, and this? Always exchange. When you're going to give something up, you need to get something of equal value back in return. If I was able to go to 22%, you know, could we put a clause in there that said, I'll let you pay 22% as long as I receive it on time or early. If you pay late, it's 25%. If you pay on time or early, it's 22. Get something back for what you're giving up. Become a better negotiator. Take your new MPCs to market. Ask for 3 to 5 director, VP, and C-level references from all candidates that you represent. Any MPC you're going to take to market, get 3 to 5 references and call them on the front end. Call them now. Get the permission to do it. Say, this is a service I do for free. I'm going to take you to market. It's a very valuable service, but I need to conduct the references on the front end. I'm going to build some of that language into my presentation. It's very powerful. And now you're getting 3 to 5 more conversations with director, VP, C-level. References are warm calls. They're not cold. And now you can flip those calls into business development. You got to start asking. If you don't ask, you won't get. So you have to start asking for retained, engaged. You have to start asking for exclusivity. You have to start asking for the things that you want to do more of. You want to do board search, you want to do VP search, you want to do C-level search. You got to start asking about those things. If you don't build it in to your conversations, you're not going to get it. So that's the 45-day challenge. I'll make this PowerPoint available, Neil, to you if anybody wants a copy of it, and I'll turn it over to Q&A. Stop sharing. I can't hear you, Neil.
Ah, there you go. The old mute button. So I said amazing things, and I can't really repeat them. So great stuff. And a lot of people will there be a replay? Facebook Live. It's going to be here. Just pick on the click on the button when you want to see it. It's also on my YouTube channel. It'll always be going there. Jeremy, so there's some questions, more comments that were on there, but a couple of things really resonated with me that I wanted to elaborate on, get your sort of take also. But you had mentioned Tony Robbins, and one of the things that you went through quickly was just get 2 new prospects. But there is, so I went to a Tony Robbins sales course on nothing but sales.
Yeah.
And that concept was an entire course, which was fascinating. So that too gave me goosebumps because it brought me back to the biggest revelation I've had, Jeremy, in the business, which was stop dialing for dollars, right? So yeah, I love that you mentioned that term in the beginning. He's like, get rid of dialing for dollars, because that implies that you're making endless calls and eventually you're going to hit. And his point was limit your focus, aim for 2 a week. And make those 2 good ones, 2 good leads, those Glenn Gary leads, those leads where you know that they use, an SAP person, where they're using an agency, where your competition's in there, and have accountability, that passion, that motivation you were talking about. It creates it because you have no choice but to focus on those 2. So if they blow you off, meaning they don't return your phone call, that's not a blow off. That's another angle you got to take afterwards, right? Connect with them on LinkedIn. Well, if they don't accept it, try. If they don't do that, send them a UPS thing, like whatever. Talk to their people that worked for them. Like do whatever you got to do to go after and get those 2 new ones a week. So it wasn't add on to your list of planning 50, 80 calls for those 2 new a week, which is important you plan, as you mentioned. So I like that a lot. I also like where you opened up with, which is different than what I see on all the groups and what I hear on a lot of the training, is you use the word phone calls. And I'm not being cute, right? But it wasn't outreach. It wasn't number of emails. It was phone calls. Yeah. And so how do you balance the 2? Because obviously you see value in bulk emails, or do you not even do bulk emails?
No, we do all the above. So you have to evolve with technology. So we do this business way different in 2020 than we did in 2010, and certainly differently than we did in 2010 or 2000. So, now we do have LinkedIn. We do have InMails. We do have Zoom info. We have capabilities with PCR to do email campaigns, right? Do email blast to 200 all at once or whatever. And we use that. We take MPCs to market with email blast campaigns. We also, we do business development activities. And when we get a new search, we send out like a very targeted, here's 150 people we want to approach about this search. And it helps us to prioritize calls with people that we know are interested first. And now one of the metrics we look at is how many scheduled calls per day do I have? And I fill a lot of 30-minute windows with scheduled calls, like boom, 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 boom. And I wasn't thinking that way in the early 2000s. I didn't have lots of scheduled calls. I would work a recruiting list from the top down. And so we're using technology as a tool to set up phone calls. Phone calls, you can accomplish more in less time. That's really where the relationship building comes from. You don't develop relationships with emailing and texting.
No,
You do not. No, you can create an action. You can close for an action. The action is, can you get on the phone with me? When can you talk? When can we get on the phone? When can we hop on the phone? And that's how, and we do text messaging now. Wasn't doing that 12 years ago. So we do text messages to hiring authorities. We use text messages with candidates. We will ask, one of the things we'll ask is, can I get your cell number and can we send you text messages? And so, yeah, it's totally different. But the way that we're using technology is to get on the phone. It's to get into in-person. If it's a local client or, it's a client that's going to give me a really big search or a big project, I'll get on the plane and fly and meet them also. But it is an activity business. And if whatever activities you're doing, if it doesn't lead to lots of fee agreements and searches, and it doesn't lead to interviews, those are the two key types of inventory we have. We're an inventory business, and it's a giant game of match. Your inventory is searches, job orders, clients. And then your other inventory is really good candidates that I can present and match up with those two cards. It's like a giant game of match. You get the client, it looks like a jack of hearts. Well, this candidate looks like a jack of hearts. Boom, they match, they get hired. This isn't rocket science, but if either of your two inventories is not very high, not very good, you don't have very many searches, you don't have very many clients, you can be the best recruiter there is. If you're working a full desk, you're in trouble. And if you have really good clients, but you're not good at recruiting and you don't get enough, so quality versus quantity is what you were talking about, Neil. And any recruiter or account executive that is really high on one and really low on the other is still in trouble. Like, you can be the highest quality person with no quantity, you're in trouble. You could be the best quantity person with no quality, you're also in trouble.
You know what?
And
exactly.
So
and the balance of it.
And
people, and I think people learn bad habits because managers, the easiest thing for a manager to focus on and drive when things are tough, quantity. Double the calls, more call blocks, and it's not quality. And you do need both. I mean, quality without any calls isn't going to get you anywhere, but quality, would you agree? The quality matrix is geometric as opposed to the quantity. Like, if you double your quality, you're going to get much more than double the results.
The majority of big billers that I know they're definitely not making 80, 90, 100 calls.
No way. No. Right.
They're making 30 to 35, and they have longer conversations that are much more thorough. Their quality of matching candidates, their ability to get people interested in really good opportunities, to get people that aren't even active job seekers onto a call and get them interested. Their ability to vet a search with a client and to be able to sell that opportunity. Now they've got something they can take to market. I can sell that. And then they have less calls, but they're longer calls. But I'll tell you the metrics that matter. They're getting interviews. Yep. If you don't get interviews, daily and weekly, you're always getting some new interviews to set up. And so if I think backwards in this business, the number one thing that predicts your success is interviews.
Yep.
Right?
So, Jeremy, I've got a lot of comments.
You can't get interviews if you don't present candidates, and you can't get interviews if you don't have search assignments and fee agreements.
Totally.
Right?
There's a
All right.
bunch of questions I wanted to get to before people tune out. So I have other things to add. I'm going to be quiet and go to the questions. What was the hardest period in your career? Was it recession, pandemic, or personal? And do you feel that peer groups help out?
Love peer groups, and I've had 3 rough patches in my 20-year career. One, I went through a divorce in '06. I had no kids, and I left MRI and I
Oh, that
started my
new
own
wife
firm.
that's a new wife in all your pictures?
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
what your old wife looked like, dude, but home run on you. You upgraded, my friend. Whatever. You're out of your league there.
I did good, and and so now I have family and kids and all that. My first wife is my project coordinator out of Los Angeles. She's my recruiter, one of my top recruiters.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I have to balance an ex-wife with a with my current wife, and she works with us, right? But look, um, I also '09 was a tough year. That was a recession that hit almost everyone. The fact that we did contract staffing helped us make it through that time. Companies that were on hiring freezes would still bring on people on contract, and I think we had like 8 or 9 people on contract that year. And instead of starting every month at zero, with we were making like 20 or 25 or 30 an hour per contractor. I mean, and we were starting every month with 20 or 25 grand in '09. And so contracting helped me get through, but '09 was a tough year. And then, this year, I mean, March, April, May, June, fell off the face of the earth for us. We had a great first quarter. We placed multiple C-level searches. I mean, I think we were on pace for a $1.5 million year or more, January, February, March, and we had deals that where cash was still coming in April, but number of searches, everything just kind of went on hold. Companies were figuring out, can we interview still with COVID, and how do we make offers, and can we make
Okay, but
offers
what was
without
your
doing
quarter?
in-person
I mean, not
interviews?
to you don't have to answer. What was
Yeah.
your second quarter in billings? And I always bring this up to people because it's all relative.
Second quarter, I think we made 1 perm placement, and we had contractors. We're a blended firm. We had contractors, and we made 1 deal for 3 months. And we got the PPP loan. That was great. And I got to be honest, Neil, mentally, I wasn't in the right place mentally.
Yeah.
We had like a $90,000 PPP loan. We have a small company, 3 of us, 4 of us. 2 of them are independent recruiters. So my head wasn't in the right place, and I wasn't doing the
Yeah.
right activities, and COVID had me in the wrong place. But you cannot allow yourself to stay in that place for very long. And one of the things I encourage everyone to realize is you have to say, is it me or is it the market? And if you can point to other recruiters that are killing it right now in your same industry or space, I can tell you the problem isn't the industry, it's you. And it was me. The problem was me.
Yeah, no, I think that's very honest, and I think that happened to a lot of people. And I won't lie either. I mean, I'm supposed to be Mr. Motivator, Mr. Everything's Wonderful. I'm always honest with people. When I have my down days or I have some depression or whatever it is, it's going to affect you. For April, I I watch TV all day. Like I
Netflix,
was
man.
just like,
How
you know
many
what?
series
Like,
could I binge watch, right?
no, that's all I did for a month. And then I said, this isn't going to do any good. But the whole world was, I kind of felt like, I don't want to say it was a free out, but everyone was doing that. No one's picking up phones. I'm like, screw it. Let me just wait
I
till this
can, but
passes.
Neil, now we can't afford to do that anymore,
No.
man.
Oh, God. It was
Anybody that's
April,
been
dude.
in that place for a few months, it's time to get out of that place.
That's right.
Companies,
No. It was
companies
April.
are moving. Hiring is happening. We made 2 deals in the last week and a half. We're about to maybe get an offer today. We just got a new vice president of enterprise app search yesterday. You got to get your marketing efforts back up. You got to get your digital marketing back up. You got to get your touch points with hiring authorities and clients back up, and start warm. If you're totally rutted out, start with warm calls and make yourself go back and call every single hiring authority you've ever worked with, and call every single person you've ever placed, and just start there.
That's right.
Because
And sell temps. Sell
that's
temps,
right.
as you mentioned, and Chris brought it up. Neither of you using my back office one day. No, for anyone, I can help people with temps that don't know they can do it. temp is down 10% only since last year. Perm is now itching, closing that gap. It's as you mentioned, it's good now. It is
It's
good.
Yeah.
You can't just keep saying pandemic. It's good.
You
Good.
got to
Not
snap
just
out of it. And look, some people are going to snap out of it sooner than others. Some will eventually snap out and be okay, and then some just won't make it. You have to say, am I a hunter? Am I a survivor? Or am I going to just roll over and die? And it's time to climb out of the tree and go hunt. And it's time to live. It's time to, you can't just survive. It's time to get back to thriving. And I can tell you, if you get back on it, December and January is going to be good. It's going to be good. If you do that 45-day challenge, your first quarter is going to be good. Companies are moving now. They're back rolling again.
Yep. So Jeremy, if you're taking an MPC to market or some other strategy using bulk email, how do you CC more than one person at a given company on one email? Or do you only CC multiple people in certain situations is the question.
Yeah, I don't do that on the bulk emailing at all. It just goes to them only. But to your point about less is more, I think you were kind of hitting at that with the Tony Robbins sales thing you were talking about. I used to just, year one, one company, one call. And that was my idea of biz dev. I just randomly, it was like I was just shotgunning it and hoping I got lucky. Now I'm more apt to go after five companies a week, maybe 5 to 8. And in each company, I break down who are the top 7 people that I want to contact. And so I might print it out. It could be an Indeed search that I know is there. I'll print it and I will write down who's the CIO, who's the CTO, who's the VP of Enterprise Apps, who's the SAP director. And then I will write down on the right-hand side, Chief HR Officer, VP of Talent Acquisition, Director of Talent Acquisition. And I'll just write down all the names. And I'll go, boom, circle. That's my 7. I'm going to call them all. Start with the top, then go down. And always start in the department first. I'm in IT first. I'll even wait 2 days, and then I'll do Chief HR Officer, Director of Talent Acquisition. And then I do that email that will be at the highest level and CC everyone else. That is, I'm not going after very many companies that way. That is like 5 to 10, and I'm going to really go after them hard. And my percentage to eventually flip those is pretty darn good. And my percentage that they're going to at least tell me yes or no is very high. And great recruiters don't allow people to tell you no that have no authority to tell you no. Like a talent acquisition person telling me no is like, it bounces off me like Rain-X, right? And now if a CIO tells me no, okay, I can live with that. A super high level person said, it's not going to happen. We aren't paying your fee. We don't need you right now. Then develop a relationship, leave a good taste in their mouth, add a little value, plant a seed that might grow later. I'll send them over my comp survey. It's all branded. It's PDF. It's got my brand all over it. It adds value to them. I already did it. It didn't cost me much to email it to them. And it's building my brand. It's adding value. And so maybe I will get the search if they have a hard time filling it 30 to 45 days later. That guy, he rubbed me the right way, not the wrong way. He tried to add value. He took it very professionally. But now you're building relationships that might grow later. Yeah.
And by the way, you said the word Rain-X really quickly. For those people who don't know it, I am telling you, get onto Amazon right now, buy a bottle of friggin' Rain-X, RANEX. It will change your vehicle auto life. That's all I could say. It's that, to me, right? Am I exaggerating it? It is that amazing.
It's a good product. It even worked good on your shower at home.
Anyway. Yeah, buy it for your windshield. Say no more. Just do it. Trust us, okay? You got another question there. How can we implement this system in a market where we look for really high-level clearance candidates in the DoD space, Department of Defense space, for subcontracting firms, where even finding one candidate sometimes for a role is extremely difficult? Does it make more sense to change the field?
Yeah, well, we know a lot of big billers that work in that space. In fact, we do a little bit in that space, where they have to have a TSSCI. And Brock Boyd is in Pinnacle Society. He works in that space and lives in Washington, D.C. And I know Benjamin Mena, who's in our group here, very active, and he works in that space. So that's a great space to work in, the top secret security clearance kind of security clearance space in the DOD, the DOJ, and whatnot. And I think if anything, if you feel like your market's too small, You might broaden out that we do different levels within the security clearance space. And you can, if you feel like, let's say you do supply chain and logistics only, you could expand that to include IT people in the same space. And then if you did mostly directly with public sector government, you could say, well, we're going to also start working with CACI and SRA. Those are consulting firms that work in that space. And so there's a way to expand your market, but still stay in the security clearance space. And the majority of people have a market that's too big. It's very rare to see someone that has a market that's too small.
Yeah, and you know what, on that point, because that's a whole other trading topic right there. In fact, I think Jeff Kay, because he's been brought up a bunch of times, presented it about the most succinctly on terms of your niche. And he did it because, you know, when I went to do training at his company in Dallas, I noticed that almost everyone was a 7-figure biller. And I'm like, okay, so what's the secret here? And he said, well, let's go through the secret. And I want you to come to a training that I'm doing where I share the secret. And frankly, it was a much more advanced version of what I used to do, of why people need to specialize. And this was mastering the niche. Those of you who want to go on a full training of that, he let me steal it a decade ago. I've got it for free. It's in my online boot camp. It's at thedynamicsale.com/pal as in buddy, or email me. But it's thedynamicsale.com/PAL as in palingenesis. You can get that program for free. His sessions in there, the one that I did, How to Master Your Niche. It's an hour and a half of what Jeremy alluded to, which is super critical.
Yeah, one of the things is it shrinks your time to fill. If anyone's not specialized in niche, oh my God, game changer. Because if you have done the same search, let's say 30 times in the last 7 years, and now you get that search, you can do the whole recruiting campaign and have 3 to 5 people to present in like 2 or 3 days.
Right.
A firm that takes that search that's never done it, it'll take them 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. And so when you talk about how can someone build 700 and someone else build 200, it's because they can complete the entire search in 3 days.
Because of recyclability is the term.
Recyclability
right?
of candidates.
Recyclability.
Yeah. You get really good at this. You can take a new search. I can sometimes think of someone I already know. That's who we end up placing.
Right. Or you think of someone you know, Jeremy, that's already a candidate, is one of 2 people that XYZ is considering. And you know what? They're not giving me a retainer. I'm going to send these same 3 people to this guy.
Yeah. Some people you place 2, 3, 4 times in a 12-year period. You start placing people multiple times. I don't pull them out of the company.
No, absolutely.
If something happens, then I'll replace them. And you'll have some placements that you literally did a half of a day of work on it and made a $35K fee, because it's just, you knew that space so well. You knew exactly what part of the lake to go to, what kind of bait to put on the hook, and you caught the right fish just that quick. But that happens in specialization. It does not happen on general desk.
It must be done. It must be done. I'll tell people this. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care if you're great at IT in general, which is probably where you started. Like, that's a specialization. That's not a niche. And it is a wonderful specialization. But where are you getting the position where you find the most value, or they want to listen to you the most, or you seem to be enjoying the most, or you just see this different demand? And at least focus on that more, or at least outbound, make more of those outbound lead calls. And I'm sure somehow that's how you moved over from IT alone into SAP, which is right.
And Neil, I specifically wanted to get into a market that had a high demand and a low supply, because our marketplaces are supply and demand driven. Salary ranges are driven by supply and demand, and the need to use an external search firm is driven by supply and demand. And so these are strategic decisions that people make about their desk that make huge differences, right? Whereas you say, okay, I used to do a general IT desk in St. Louis. I'm going to now work on just SAP in the Midwest. Well, the minute I did that, I stopped doing fees that were 15K, because all the SAP people, at a minimum, they're all 6 figures. My average fee went from like 15 to like 25. And now, the average fee is probably 32, 34. And so high demand, low supply drives your fees, and which is attached to comp ranges, right? And companies, when it's a really, really hard search, these are the ones that they can post it on LinkedIn all they want. They can post it on Career Builder all they want, Indeed all they want. It's still going to be hard for them to fill. That's the market I want to work in, because they need search firms.
So I don't know your answer to this, but what happens when someone tells you that they need a Salesforce systems analyst? What's your answer to them?
Number one, if it's tangential to what we do and semi-related and it's a slow market, then I work it.
Let's say it's not. Let's say it's not tangential.
Right.
It's one of the gazillion other positions that have nothing to do with what you do.
Yeah, I help a lot of clients solve problems like that. I think Joe Madden might be on the call with us, and he does attorneys and law firm stuff. And one of my clients needed a chief legal officer, and I referred that over to Joe Madden, and he made the deal.
But you don't work them. You don't work them.
Nope. I say, but I help the client solve the problem.
Absolutely.
I always want to help my client solve the problem. They think of me as the problem solver.
Right. But you're saying if you get an IT position that's peripheral, not connected, not adjacent, like most, because it's a huge space and it's not in your SAP bailiwick or something very near that, you'll help them find a solution that's not Jeremy Sizemore.
That's right.
But that's, in leaving this and ending this session, I think that's tremendously powerful. I think that's the only right answer, and one that most recruiters are afraid to do.
Knowing when to say no, knowing who you are, and you have to really believe and have confidence in who you want to be, not just who you are today, but who you want to become. And so if you want to do more retainers, you want to have more exclusivity, you want to work higher level searches, you want to get better fee agreements, then you have to posture in such a way as to be like, I'm not desperate for your business. I'll walk away from it. And, you could probably get a general IT firm to do that, but I'm not your guy. I'll even introduce you to a firm that'll work a low fee like that. That's pretty good, but it ain't me, and then like the whole thing is you want to create, for some people, they want to create the idea that, oh, that guy's clearly different. That's more of a firm that we'll call when we get a CIO search or a director or VP search. And was I doing that in my first 3 years? No, I wasn't.
No, because it's fool's gold, man. It's fool's gold. You can make a play. As my client, they love me. They want me to do an accounting liaison. You name it. Wow, I can make 15 grand. But any work you do there is wasted because there's no recyclability, right? Right. You don't get to. It's just you might get the deal, but all the other time the opportunity cost is crazy. So anyway, Jeremy, we are way over an hour and 15 minutes. It went super, super fast. I think we've got all the questions, but I'll say this. Those of you watching this on reruns, post your questions. Jeremy and I will read them. We'll make sure you get an answer. It's going to be here. Give it a little bit, how Facebook Live works. Jeremy, I thank you a ton for doing this. I know you just did this like 3 times, but it's hugely valuable. And I know everyone watching this and that will watch it got tremendous value out of it.
Well, thanks for having me, Neil. Happy holidays, everyone. And look, your December activity sets your whole 2021 up. Hope that you guys kill it and that you have a great year next year.
Same to everyone. Happy holidays.